Attention, armchair quarterbacks and shower thought GMs. It's time for this week's episode of SportsBall with Mike Maharrey and Alan Mosley.
Hey Mike, over in the chat, Lalderio says, I don't have cable and my reception is spotty, so basically you're the number one leader in Lalderio sports news. This is really a sad day for Lalderio.
If anybody hasn't read this article, I don't read it. This was brought to me by a mother of children. I think this is worth reading. Let me tell you why I want to talk about this article.
Not just any mother, a mother of children.
3/4 of this is inaccurate. It's fiction.
3/4.
And this article embarrasses me to be involved with athletics tremendously. And that article had to have been written by a person that doesn't have a child.
Oh shit.
Oh. And has never had a child that's had their heart broken and come home upset and had to deal with the child when he is upset and kick a person when he's down. Here's all that kid did. He goes to class. He's respectful to the media. He's respectful to the public.
I like how the public's more important than the media.
And he's not a professional athlete.
Because they are.
And he doesn't deserve to be kicked when he's down. If you have a child someday, you'll understand how it feels. But you obviously don't have a child. I do. If your child goes down the street and somebody makes fun of him because he dropped a pass in a pickup game, or says he's fat, and he comes home crying to his mom, you'd understand.
Can you say fat in 2020?
But you haven't.
I don't know.
But someday you will.
I was
And
never
when your
called
child
fat,
comes
but
home,
that's because I was
you'll understand.
skinny, so I was called a zipper.
If you want to go after an
A zipper?
athlete, one of my athletes, you go after one that doesn't do the right things. You don't downgrade him because he does everything right and may not play as well on Saturday, and you let us make that decision. That's why I don't read the newspaper, because it's garbage, and the editor that let it come out is garbage. Attacking an amateur athlete for doing everything right. And then you want to write articles about guys that don't do things right and downgrade them, the ones that do make plays. Are you kidding me? Where are we at in society today?
Good question.
Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm not a kid. Write something about me or our coaches. Don't write about a kid that does everything right, that's heart's broken, and then say that the coaches said he was scared. That ain't true. And then to say that we made that decision because Donovan Woods, because he threatened to transfer, that's not true. So get your facts straight. And I hope someday you have a child and somebody downgrades them and belittles them, and you have to look them in the eye and say, you know what? It's okay. They're supposed to be mature adults, but they're really not. Who's the kid here? Who's the kid here? Are you kidding me? That's all I got to say. Makes me want to puke.
Anxious clapping. Welcome back to SportsBall for episode 76. I am your host, Alan Mosley, joined as always by my co-host and Tampa Bay sports superfan. It's Mike Maharrey. Mike, how are you doing?
I just have one thing to say, Alan.
What?
Get your facts straight.
So today, September 22nd, as we're recording this, is the 13-year anniversary of the epic meltdown rant by Coach Gundy. I remember when that happened. I was watching it live on television, and what I'll never forget is not the rant, is that for the next, say, 48, 72 hours afterwards, do you think the media did any self-reflecting on smearing kids in the news that they had no corroborating evidence on, or did they circle the wagons to protect the media?
I'm going to go with circle the wagons.
You would be correct. They were only interested in talking about how Coach Gundy should resign, that this was totally unprofessional. Now, of course, it's completely professional for them to write the articles that they wrote. It's unprofessional for Mike Gundy to go to a press conference and call them out for their BS. I remember after that happened, all the talking heads were saying Gundy's a joke, the media never lies. And the whole time I was thinking, this is the best recruiting he's ever done.
Yeah, right.
Don't you want to play for the guy that when
Absolutely.
the news writes something bad about your missed dropped pass or whatever, he says F you to the press?
Exactly.
So anyway, how's it going?
Not too bad. Here's a little factoid for you.
Okay.
Tampa Bay Rays.
Mm-hmm.
Their magic number is 1.
Wow.
Think they're going to win the AL East. Only the second time in the existence of the franchise that they've won the AL East. Of course, there's a big asterisk by it because there was only 60 games. But
I was waiting for you to explain to us how they weren't going to achieve it.
Yeah.
Well, with that said, we have a lot to get to today, so I'm going to let you start us off with.
I could do that. So apparently Bruce Arians went back and looked at the film of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win over the Carolina Panthers, and he said that there were 7 drop passes during the game that would have added about 125 passing yards and 3 touchdowns to the Buccaneers' offensive stats, which that's a lot of yards and a lot of points. Now, I tell you what, Alan,
Mm-hmm.
I could drop 7 passes.
Only if you throw it to me 7 times.
Yeah, that's true. From what I understand, the threat was if these guys keep dropping passes, Tom Brady's not going to throw it to you. So I'd only get to probably drop 1, and then I wouldn't get thrown to again.
Now, I'm going to click play on a little video here, and I don't have audio for it. We're just going to let this play in the background while you and I kind of do a quick recap of the NFL weekend. So pay no attention to what's going on right there in the background as I pull up the NFL scores from this past weekend. Pay no attention to the fact that the Cowboys are getting absolutely murdered in the first quarter / first half of their game against the Atlanta Falcons. Oh, look, they're still getting murdered, but the Cowboys are making some plays. But I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter, right? The game's over. So again, pay no attention to any of that. We'll get to that here in a second. So we're going to do a really quick breakdown. Back on Thursday night, the Browns did win the pillow fight, which I want to say, by the way, we are doing really good on this year's pick'em so far. We both had Browns over Bengals.
We did.
The Bears win a narrow game against the Giants. The Giants are not completely impudent the way they were last year. I'm going to skip that game between the Birds and the Stars. We'll get back to that in a second. Packers 42, Lions 21. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is looking pretty good, but you know what? I think
I looked at that game early and the Lions were up. I thought, uh-oh.
Yep. But
then they weren't.
You know what? The bigger story is not really Aaron Rodgers. It's Aaron Jones, the running back for Green Bay, which is currently leading the league in yards. He's in the driver's seat for the running title. He had only 18 carries for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, I know. Titans 33, Jaguars 30 in a game that shouldn't have been that close, but
That's right.
How's this for 2 weeks in a row that Stephen Gostkowski misses a kick that could cost the Titans the win and then makes the game-winning kick?
Yeah. He's like, fire me. No, don't fire me.
I mean, if he had missed the extra point and then the Titans had gone on to lose, I think, okay, for sure, he's done. But I think he's going to keep his job. Colts 28, Vikings 11. Phillip Rivers had a little bit more pedestrian day, but imagine this. If you don't have Phillip Rivers throwing 60 times a game and you establish the run, the Colts do better. Imagine that.
Yeah. I don't think the Vikings are good either.
The Vikings aren't good. Quick little aside about the Vikings. People were pointing out that Derrick Henry is doing well in yards this year, but the Titans actually don't have a rushing touchdown yet. Only the Bears and Titans don't. And a Minnesota Vikings fan said, well, that'll change this Sunday because the Vikings play the Titans. Bills 31, Dolphins 28. I mean, Josh Allen is looking really good. 24 of 35, 417 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also had some rushing yards as well. The thing is, though, is that why are they still only winning few-point games against teams as bad as the Dolphins?
Yeah.
Hard to say. This is what's weird about only being a couple of weeks into the season. 49ers 31, Jets 13. Whatever 49ers are left alive can celebrate the victory.
Yikes.
Rams 37, Eagles 19. You want to talk about yikes? How about those Eagles just a couple of years removed from the Super Bowl, not being able to manage any wins? Steelers 26, Broncos 21. The Broncos actually had possession late in the game with the chance for a go-ahead score, despite the fact that they were playing Driscoll, your boy from Florida, because Drew Lock was out with injury, which we'll get to that in a second. So again, I mean, bravo for Roethlisberger and the Steelers to be having an improved season, but narrowly winning against bad teams. Buccaneers 31, Panthers 17. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater had a decent day, but he had a couple of picks. But man, if you're Tom Brady and you're too old to play, just hand the ball to Leonard Fournette, apparently.
Yeah, first time in a long time that the Bucs have had a running back that could close out a game.
All right, since we're getting near the end of the video, I'll take a quick break to come back to the view here. You're about to see Greg Zuerlein kick the winning field goal to make it a 40-39 Cowboys win over the Falcons. And if you're
Wait, what?
Yes. If you're wondering, wait a minute, the Falcons were up by 20 in the first quarter. And then even then, wait a minute, the Falcons were up 15 with only 4:48 left in the game. The answer is, yeah, you're right, but then they let the Cowboys score. They actually denied the 2-point conversion to keep it a 2-score game. Let the Cowboys score again. Let the Cowboys recover what is probably the worst onside kick recovery in the history of mankind, and then let the Cowboys get a long strike and field goal to win the game. I'm actually going to pause right there before I do the last of the scores. This was going to be kind of our pseudo spaced out lightning round this week. Mike Maharrey, did the Cowboys win or did the Falcons lose?
Ooh. You're up 20. You're up that. The Falcons lost.
I kind of agree. It's exciting and fun to see the kind of stats the Cowboys racked up, especially in the second half. But a lot of people are going to forget, look, the Falcons offense actually scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. So that's not a bad fourth quarter. They still lost. So to me, the Falcons lost, not the Cowboys won. So anyway, we'll wrap up here. Chiefs 23, Chargers 20. We'll go ahead.
That's crazy. That's way closer than I think anybody imagined.
Did you have a cowardly coaches?
Oh, I do. I have a cowardly coach coaching cowardly. The San Diego Chargers, Los Angeles Chargers.
Whatever.
They're never going to be the Los Angeles Chargers to me. But yeah, so overtime. Mm-hmm. Which was surprising. I mean, the Chargers are playing with their, I guess, their young rookie quarterback, who played quite well, actually, Herbert, and won the toss to have the ball first in overtime, and played it conservative. Did kind of couple running plays, but they get to fourth and basically a yard, maybe a little less than a yard. They decided to punt the ball to Mahomes. That's cowardly coaching, if you ask me.
Not only is that cowardly coaching, but there's that old phrase, you don't dance with the champ, you knock them out. They decided to keep dancing with the Chiefs offense late into the overtime when they had a chance to hold their destiny in their own hands.
And they lost.
So not only did they lose, but that's epic cowardly coaching. Funny little side tidbit for that. Los Angeles Chargers coach Anthony Lynn, even though Herbert came in and played remarkably well for a rookie who was literally told 5 seconds before kickoff, hey, Tyrod can't go, you're the starter. He's already come out and said, look, he left a lot on the field. He's a rookie for a reason. Tyrod's back in action as soon as he's healthy. Herbert is not the starter for next week, declared right now.
Now all of the pundits were talking about after the game. Oh, Herbert's got to be the starter now. It's got to rise to the throne.
With the result of the game being what it was, and with those comments by Coach Lynn, who will be a Charger for longer, Anthony Lynn or Josh Herbert?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think Anthony Lynn's goose is cooked, and that's why he's lashing out. Cardinals 30, Washington football team 15. I actually have a funny little. We're gonna space out our announcers say, because I have one from that game. Trailing 27-15 with 6:38 left in regulation, the football team lined up to kick off, and the commentator said, "quote It's too early for an onside." The football team got the ball back, trailing 30-15 with 26 seconds remaining. Turns out it wasn't too early to kick it off. Turns out it wasn't too early. So anyway, going back to the last of the scores here. Ravens 33, Texans 16. You just have to feel for Deshaun Watson. He didn't have a perfect game, but when he's basically your statistical leader in all categories, playing just one position on your team, that can't be good. And the Ravens pretty much just played like the Ravens. Seahawks 35, Patriots 30, and what ended up being a dramatic last-second finish in a game that you really felt like the Seahawks should have had it well in hand. But the Seahawks do come away with the win. I've always been on the Russell Wilson bandwagon, but I'm definitely saying right now he is the favorite to win the MVP unless he has a total collapse.
Yeah, for sure. I've got an announcer say from that game.
Uh-oh.
Our buddy Chris Collinsworth. It really wasn't about this game specifically, but he was talking about the rash of injuries that we saw on Sunday. But according to Chris, it's not about the injuries. It's about injuries at a certain position, which, if you ask me, is about the injuries.
You know what? I'll give you another one. Chris Collinsworth, Sunday Night Football, says, that's what Russell Wilson does to you. You got to send athletes after him if you're going to rush him. Which begs the question, how many professional football players in the NFL are not athletes? Good old Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah. Oh, Chris, give me another shot of vodka.
In our last game from last night, Monday night, Raiders 34, Saints 24. I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I think that game ended the way it did towards the end of the broadcast. But I do want to go back to my notes here. So you gave us cowardly coaches. I'm going to give you brave coaches coaching bravely.
Ooh.
Now, we give Chucky a lot of the business on this program. And to be fair, it's because he's Chucky and he deserves everything he gets.
Yes.
With that said, how about this? Coach Gruden goes for 4th and goal from the 1. Now, you might think, well, that should be an easy call, although a lot of coaches kick the field goal there. But this is also after, on 2nd and goal, Jacobs fumbles the ball. They're lucky to get it back. They lose a yard. On 3rd and goal, David Carr fumbles the snap and has to dive into the line to get it. So after 2 consecutive fumbles from the 1/2 yard line with 9:58 left in the third, he says, no, I don't care about that. You're still supposed to go for it. Touchdown. They take a 24-17 lead they would not relinquish. Again, just to prove it was no fluke. From midfield, 4th and 1 with 30 seconds left in the third quarter, and they do convert that one on a Jacobs run. They go on to score their final points. That would be the final deciding points of the game. So, Coach Gruden, coaching like someone who wants to win as opposed to avoid losing.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
And he won.
And he won. So, yeah, it works out. It works out for our narrative that they went on to win.
Yes.
So, I think it's time to shoot a puck to the head.
Let's do shoot a puck to the head. We're going to shoot a puck to the head to the entire NFL. I guess it's not really the entire NFL. It's the NFL management,
sure.
the NFL as an entity. And as you can see on your screen, 3 NFL teams are being fined $250,000 each. That would be the Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Denver Broncos, all because their coaches were not wearing face coverings during the game. And those 3 head coaches were also fined individually $100,000. Now, to me, this whole thing of a coach wearing a mask, a man who has been with these players for, the last how many weeks, they're going to fine him for not wearing a mask. This is just another example of, I'd say, political theater, but it's not even political. It's just theater. And it's stupid, and now it's costing people a lot of money. And one of the coaches, I can't remember, it was the coach, daggone it, and I can't remember. It wasn't one of these 3 coaches, but it was, might have been the junior Gruden. And in fact, I think it was. But he was saying, hey, I've had coronavirus. There's no point in me wearing a mask, and it is hindering my communication with my players. Now, imagine that having a rag around your face hindering your communication.
Yeah. So that actually was Chucky, by the way.
Oh, was it Chucky?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so it was the senior Gruden.
Yeah.
But Yeah. So I think this is absurd.
Yeah.
And we're not even getting into we could argue the efficacy of masks in general in the general public. I'm not even talking about that in this context, in the context of a football game. And we've talked about this before. Some of these rules that have been put in place are just arbitrary, capricious, and really incomprehensible when you try to figure out the logic of them.
Yeah. Well, and it's also crossing the Rubicon too, by the way. That combined, that's more than $1 million in fines. Teams have cheated, players have purposely tried to injure other players, and no one was fined $1 million.
Right.
Come on.
Puck to the head.
Puck to the head, well deserved. You know what it's time for? It's time
What
for
is
the
it time
LPT of the week.
Oh, this is one of my favorites.
The LP team of the week is the Tulane Green Wave, which, by the way, I like teams that have unique mascots and monikers rather than, the Wildcats or
Right.
something of that nature.
The
The
Eagles.
Tigers.
Yeah.
But with that said, Tulane went into halftime with a 24-0 lead over a Navy team that had just been blasted in their first week of the season. So Tulane, looking at starting off their season 2-0 versus Navy, who was currently sitting 0-1 after being absolutely throttled. From the moment they walked out on the field at halftime, the Navy midshipmen scored 27 unanswered points on their way to a 27-24 win. And Tulane, you are the LP team of the week.
That is a big yikes.
That's a super yikes right there. So I'm gonna backtrack a little bit and go over some of the stats that I had pulled up. We're going to get to injuries in a second, but I want to finish a couple of thoughts on the Falcons Cowboys. We watched the footage earlier, but I really want to put into. I'd asked you the question: did the Falcons lose or did the Cowboys win?
Mm-hmm.
Consider some of these stats. These are quarterback Matt Ryan of the Atlanta Falcons. These are his stats in losses since 2018. That's 19 games. 68.5% completion percentage, 5,876 yards, 38 touchdowns to only 13 interceptions for an exactly 100 passer rating. If that were a season, he'd win MVP hands down. And those are his stats in losses. How about that? And the Falcons, how's this? The Falcons are the first team in NFL history to score 39 or more points, commit 0 turnovers, and lose. Before today, teams that did that were a combined 440 wins, 0 losses. Finally, as a little aside, because we like to do our pick'ems and talk about our sunken cost money pits, did you know that during yesterday's game, because for a lot of bookies, you can bet the live money line. And of course, the line will go up and down based on how the game is. Someone booked a $35,000 bet on the Falcons on the money line in order to win $1,050 at a money line of negative 33.33. And, well, they didn't win. Someone just lost $35,000 on the Falcons.
Ooh, somebody's in trouble with the wife.
Yeah, well, someone's probably in the river by now.
yeah, there's that.
With that said, I want to take a brief aside before we get to more announcers say. I want to take a brief aside to talk about those injuries. The injury bug from this last week was absolutely catastrophic. And I've got just a really quick rundown for you, and we'll talk about some of the high notes. The Falcons lost Caleb McGarry, right tackle, Tack McKinley, defensive end, Ricardo Allen, safety. Ravens lost Tavon Young, the quarterback. Panthers, Christian McCaffrey, the running back. He looks like he's going to be out a few weeks at least with an ankle. Denver Broncos lost Drew Lock, their quarterback. It's another few weeks at least. Cortland Sutton, the wide receiver, who was having an amazing day. He's out for the year. Draymond Jones, defensive end. Green Bay lost Devontae Adams, their wide receiver, who's also having a good year. The Colts lost Paris Campbell, wide receiver. Malik Hooker, the safety. And his was an Achilles, so he's out. Jaguars lost Brandon Linder, their center, and DJ Hayden, a cornerback with a concussion. Of course, the Chargers lost Tyrod Taylor to some sort of weird chest injury as a result of an injection prior to the game. That sounds like a whole story in of itself.
Yes, it does.
But we're not gonna go there. The Rams lost Cam Akers, their running back, Malcolm Brown, a running back, and Joe Noteboom, their left guard. Dolphins lost Byron Jones, the cornerback. Minnesota Vikings, Anthony Barr, linebacker. The Giants, Saquon Barkley, who's
Ooh,
just
that's a
coming
yikes.
off of practically a whole season lost. He's torn his ACL again.
Torn ACL.
That's 2 of his first 3 years in the league being gone to injury. This is a serious risk to his career now, I would think.
Yeah, for sure.
He's still young. He still has plenty of time to get back in the saddle, but you know that there's going to be a lot less teams interested in taking a risk on a Barkley who's lost 2 out of his first 3 years of the season. Sterling Shepard, wide receiver. The Jets lost Brashard Perriman and Connor McGovern, their center. How about the San Francisco 49ers?
Oh, yeah, they need to just have they need to move their practice facility to a hospital.
Yes, the 49ers, who were a trendy pick to return to the Super Bowl, because I mean, bringing basically everyone back and built around defense and a running game, you just assumed they would, and I was on that boat as well. Nick Bosa, the defending defensive rookie of the year, is out. So I think that they have officially announced that it is an ACL and he's done.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo, their quarterback, which is less of a problem than some of these others, but I mean, that being neither here nor there. Raheem Mostert, their running back, who, by the way, was just having an amazing day.
Yeah, that's a big loss for them. That's bigger than Garoppolo.
Yeah, so he's got an MCL sprain. He's not out for the year, but he's going to be out for some time. Solomon Thomas, their defensive tackle, is out. The Seahawks lost Marquise Blair, but I believe they also lost Bruce Irvin later in the evening. The Titans lost Jonathan Joseph, their corner, and Washington football team Brandon Scherf, their right guard. By the way, that list I just read out is only about half of the key injuries from just last weekend, which begs the question, that whole low training camp, no preseason thing is starting to not look so great.
Yeah. So I've got a buddy that's a strength and conditioning coach. He was actually the strength and conditioning coach for the U.S. women's Olympic team, U.S. hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And he posted this earlier today. He said 7 ACL tears in a week in the NFL.
Yeah.
If you're still under the impression that physical preparation for your sport is unnecessary, you're playing a dangerous game.
Yeah, that's right. Lyle Durio says in the chat, talking about the mask fines, this is the NFL putting on blast that they are down with the system. Isn't that a shame?
Yeah.
Andrew Avery says, I had Brady in fantasy. Grr. Andrew, don't have fantasy QBs that were born in the 70s. That's it. That's all you have to do. I mean, am I wrong? Am I wrong? That's all I'm saying. So anyway, we've talked about enough sad stuff. Let's talk about some announcers say.
All right, let's do it.
So we've already shared a couple. Got a few more for you. Mike Pereira, who is the official expert for Fox Sports, he says, so that is the right call, actually. To which Troy Aikman replied, okay, Mike's being a company man tonight, I see. You know, Troy Aikman is starting to get a little bit spicy in his older age. Oh, man. Troy says, I think he woke up feeling dangerous again this morning after that drive. Joe Buck says, do you ever wake up feeling dangerous? To which Troy says, yeah, most days. I just have nothing to do with it. I think Troy has reached his no fucks given age, and that's where he's at. Troy Aikman also says he's trying to bang him coming out of the backfield, and they caught him with his pants down. What?
You know, that couldn't have been by accident.
That's exactly what I was about to say. There's no way that was an accident. Ian Eagle, Giants versus Chicago, says, attempt here by Graham Gano, and it's Gano good. Because he missed it. Yeah, I know. What a yikes.
You know, and that, you know, he was waiting for that. Like, he had that prepped before the game. If there was a miss, he was going to use that.
Greg Jennings, Detroit versus Green Bay, says, lot of power in the lower half of his body, which is his legs.
Right? You think?
Oh my God, Phil Sims is getting in on the Troy Aikman action. He says, Ryan Fitzpatrick is a dual threat QB. He gives both teams a chance to win. I thought they were supposed to be impartial. I don't know. Kevin Kugler, Rams versus Eagles, says the only good thing COVID brought was an expanded practice squad. Okay. I mean,
brought a little new extra revenue to the NFL with the mask fines.
Here's you if you were a commentator talking at the Jaguars Titans game, talking about Derrick Henry. He said, the last time I played defense, I was in high school, and I never saw anyone this big run the ball. So the reason why that's funny is that for folks at home, you could go on YouTube and check out Derrick Henry highlights from Lee, and you know what?
Yes,
He
you
pretty
can.
much looks the same.
Yeah.
He pretty much looked the same at 16 as he does right now.
You know, I almost stopped and took a picture of it today. I drove by. There's a little monument as you come in the main drag, US 200. There's a little monument that says, home of Yulee, welcome to Yulee, home of Derrick Henry, and mentions that he was the Heisman Trophy winner. I'll have to take a picture of that one day, and we'll put that on the Sports Ball.
The last one I have for today is Tony Romo. He says of Herbert for the LA Chargers, I love that he has no fear. Immediately after that, Herbert throws an interception, Romo says, but sometimes a little fear is good.
Yes.
I just want to break in here, by the way, before we move on to our next segment. It was a great weekend for football. We have a lot of complaints about the National Football League, but it was actually an awesome weekend for football.
You know what's been a little bit better, and there's been a few, but I think the officiating's been better this year.
I think it has. I think other than the New Orleans Saints, there's just been less penalties in general.
Right.
Yeah, which is good. It's so weird that lack of preparation has led to more injuries, but has not led to really ugly play on the field.
No, yeah, it's been decent.
Yeah, it's been decent. Well, I'll tell you what's not decent is we have to get our solemn faces on. It's time for in memoriam. Remember, a player, a team, a coach, whoever, whose sporting life was cut tragically short. Mike Maharrey, who are you remembering this week?
Well, despite numerous times putting them in the Stanley Cup final, after virtually every game, the New York Islanders, I'm remembering them as the Tampa Bay Lightning eliminated them from the NHL playoffs, won the Eastern Conference Finals in 6 games. Actually, it took 2 overtime games for the Lightning to finally put the pesky Islanders away. And, yeah. So I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm not really supposed to be glad. It's supposed to be sad and solemn, but,
Well,
some teams deserve to die.
And apparently one of those teams is New York Islanders.
Yes.
I'll tell you who I'm remembering is Drew Brees. This might be a little controversial. Drew Brees, after their loss to the Raiders, got some stats to show you, Mike Maharrey.
Okay.
So check this out. This is Drew Brees' passing chart from last night's game, where the green dots are completed passes, the white dots are incomplete, and that one blue is just showing where a play ended, but it was at the line of scrimmage. So if you'll notice, a lot of passes are behind the line of scrimmage. Of course, if it's a pass, that means it wasn't a lateral. He did throw to someone in front of his drop back, but it was behind the line of scrimmage. And then you see a huge amount of green circles right around the 5-yard marker and in.
Yes, you do.
You actually only see a handful of passes past the 10 and only a couple more past the 5. Now, I'm going to read off a few interesting stats for you. So Bill Barnwell pointed out of the Ringer, Brees had 2 completions longer than 6 yards downfield since the end of the first quarter. That doesn't sound like a powerful, accurate passer using the whole field. And keep in mind, by the way, the Saints are loaded with offensive playmakers. So to have constantly running your entire offense around the line of scrimmage seems less than an ideal. Give you a couple of other ones. Brees has averaged 4.82 air yards on his passes this season. That's his lowest through 2 games as a member of the Saints, the lowest by any QB through 2 games since Brett Favre in 2009. Of course, what did Brett Favre have in common in 2009 with Brees now is getting up there in years. Now, the Saints and others have already been circling the wagon saying that Brees' job is to direct the Saints, not rack up air yards. The problem is he directed them to a loss.
Yes.
I'll give you one last little one. He had the 3rd worst completion percentage over expectation in the league at negative 8.4%. Even on short throws, which is 0 to 9 yards, Brees is at negative 3% completion percentage over expectation. Just last year, he was at plus 8%.
Wow.
I'm telling you right now, and I mean this one. I love Drew Brees. I've loved watching him play. I'm so happy they got the Super Bowl in the year of Katrina and just storybook all the way around. And he's loaded with stats and records. Drew Brees is done. And I'm officially saying I believe that it is Drew Brees holding the Saints back from postseason success right now, not the rest of the Saints.
You said that to me privately the other day.
Yeah. I think that the Saints would have a better chance of long-term success this season if Taysom Hill was the quarterback, or even Jameis Winston.
I was going to say, what about crab legs?
There are some people saying that Jameis Winston is the most talented pure QB on the roster right now. If you're like, look, Taysom Hill has played really well when he's been on the field, but a lot of people feel like, but as well as he has played, he's not a pure quarterback, and that's a fair argument to make. But as far as pure talent right this second, I think Drew Brees is the third best quarterback on the team, and they're forcing him into the lineup, and that is not fair to the rest of the organization.
You know, I've heard people say on a number of occasions that a lot of the great players tend to not realize when they should be done.
Yeah.
And you see that, you know, they try to stretch that one or two more seasons, and then it becomes a big yikes. And I think you might be seeing that with Brees, and you may even see that with Brady.
Yeah.
Although he doesn't look horrible. He's not the Brady that we saw 3 years ago.
I think a lot of people will look at Peyton Manning's last year and they'll say, but he won a Super Bowl. And that's true, but there's a couple of key differences there, and because a lot of people would argue that Brees now is not as bad as Peyton was at the end of his career, which I would also agree with. The difference though is that the Broncos defense that year wasn't just good; it was historically all-time great, arguably the best ever. If you look at, I know a lot of people like to say "herp dirt my '85 Bears." Statistically, the Broncos defense that year was slightly better. So when you have a defense, you know who doesn't have a defense that good is the New Orleans Saints. Now, New Orleans Saints defense was really spotty last night against the Raiders, but in week 1 against Brady's Buccaneers, they were pretty decent. But pretty decent is not all-time greatest defense. So that's one reason why Peyton won a Super Bowl in his last season. And the last thing is that, of course, I'm a little bit of a Peyton Manning homer. Look, I'll be the first one to admit he couldn't throw the ball anymore. But Peyton Manning was also still Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning was never the most physically gifted quarterback in the league, even when he was winning MVPs. He maybe was the most gifted upstairs. And I'm not saying Brees is dumb. I think Brees is also a gifted quarterback at the line.
Oh, sure.
But not as much as Peyton.
Peyton was like having a coach on the field.
Peyton was like having a coach on the field. And there was an interception that Brees threw last night that had nothing to do with zip or game management. It had everything to do with the Raiders dropped a linebacker into coverage and he didn't see it. And he threw it right to him. And that's the type, and you know what? Those things happen. But they don't happen to Tom Brady, right? They don't happen to Peyton Manning. They don't happen to Drew Brees, but they're happening to Drew Brees now. And there's something to be said for, we talked about this right before the show. Sometimes a quarterback that doesn't have it anymore will miss his receivers long, not short. And it's because they're having to change everything they've done for decades to make up for their degeneration.
Yeah,
and
they're changing their mechanics.
And that's just nary impossible to do. And like I said, I love him, but he's done. Well, that's so sad. So let's move on to this week's Pick'em. By the way, did you know that we were undefeated in last week's Pick'em?
I'm not surprised.
Well, come on. You're not surprised. We're going to start.
I'm a little surprised.
It's the only ranked match of college football this week. Number 22, the Army Black Knights. How about this? Only giving up 3.5 points per game through the first couple weeks of the season. Playing at number 14, Cincinnati Bearcats. Cincinnati may now be, they're AAC, right? Have they supplanted UCF as the team to beat?
I think people are talking it being between those two.
Well, who's the team to beat in this game? Army versus Cincinnati.
I'm gonna go with Army. I'm gonna a little bit of an upset maybe, but I like a team that's playing that solid defense.
They are playing that solid defense. I want to pick Army, but I'm gonna pick Cincinnati because while Army has put up amazing stats, they've done it against subpar competition thus far, and they still do run that kind of gimmicky option running offense
Right.
with barely any passes. I think that if Cincinnati is the team to beat in the AAC, running a more traditional offense, then they will ultimately come out on top. But I think it'll be a close game. Then we're moving on to the NFL, Packers versus Saints. Now, this will be an interesting game no matter what, but it's a little bit less interesting of a game after Monday night's shellacking of the Raiders over the Saints. Whereas Green Bay, again, Aaron Rodgers, he says his arm doesn't hurt for the first time in years, and they're off to a hot start, but they're also off to a hot start around Aaron Rodgers. The running game is blistering. The defense is at least playing above average. In years past, if you had an above average defense and a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, that's a ticket to a deep playoff run. Versus the Saints, who, I mean, the Saints look good in most places. This past week, the defense was iffy, but again, the defense was great in week 1. They have tons and tons of skilled players. Hopefully, Michael Thomas will be back. He wasn't with them last night. But again, I just went over all my problems with their quarterback situation. Green Bay at New Orleans. Who do you have?
I'm going to go with the Pack. Dave Benner will be pleased.
Yeah, Dave Benner, if you're listening, you'll be pleased. I'm going to go with the Packers as well. And really, who cares that it's at the Saints? Because home and away barely even matters anymore.
They were making fun of how bad a job the New Orleans Saints did in the Superdome in terms of even trying to do the piped-in noise.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad.
What might be the game of the week? Ooh, boy. What a game for 3 weeks into the season. Defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. They're still the Chiefs, but they're coming off a bit of an almost yikes against the Chargers. Traveling to Baltimore to play the Ravens, who have not had anything that even remotely resembles a yikes in their early start to the season. Who do you have in that?
You know, my initial gut reaction is to say the Chiefs are going to bounce back off of what wasn't their best performance last week.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to take the Ravens at home.
Yeah. So I'm kind of in the same mind as you. This is not a game that I would bet on because I think it's just as likely that was an aberration and the Chiefs come out this week and score 40. It's perfectly possible, no matter who they're playing, even if they are playing the Ravens. With that said, if we're only using what little data we have, if you're Baltimore, you're watching last week's tape and saying, okay, just do what the Chargers did on defense and we win in a walk. Because whereas the Chargers made it an overtime game with the Chiefs with virtually no offense, the Ravens have an offense. The Ravens have a really, really good offense led by the reigning NFL MVP, Lamar Jackson. So I'm going to go with the Ravens. I think if the Chiefs are even play a half the way they played it against the Chargers, it'll just be too much to come back against the Ravens. Also, by the way, the Chargers were mostly in that game because Herbert comes off the bench and plays not amazing, but good enough to keep them in the game. But they had no running game. The Ravens have a running game, and they have a great offense. So I think the Ravens. Time for this week's pillow fight.
Ooh.
It's the pillow fight that you maybe didn't expect. You understand the Cincinnati Bengals being there, but the Philadelphia Eagles. Just a Super Bowl just a few years ago, and been to the playoffs 3 of the last 4 years, despite a lot of key injuries over the last few seasons, and yet they've managed to remain competitive. Not looking very competitive this season, Mike Maharrey.
I think they get their first win this week, though. Because Cincinnati's not good.
Cincinnati's not good. I'm excited for Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is a good quarterback, and I think that if I would be happy if my team drafted Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
With that said, he got drafted by the Bengals.
Yes, he did.
I wouldn't be happy if my team was the Bengals. So yeah, I want to say that it's a fairly easy pick to say that the Eagles will pick up their first win. I will say this as a caveat. If the Eagles come out of this game 0-3, that'll be surprising but not shocking, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because what we have of them on tape this year is atrocious.
Right.
They were not competitive in their losses, especially in the second half of either of those games. At least the Bengals were a missed field goal away from a Week 1 win. So
that's true.
The Bengals are closer to a victory than the Eagles. So that's something you might not have expected to hear. Do you have a final thought?
I do have a final thought. I want to share with our audience the power of Maharrey negativity. I can turn a team around with negativity. Yesterday, Tampa Bay Lightning are playing. They had gone 0 for 14 on the power play. Had their first power play last night, looked abysmal. Got nothing going at all. So I posted on Facebook about how the Tampa Bay Lightning power play does not look powerful. And you know what happened next? 2 straight power play goals by the Lightning. So I'm just going to post random negative thoughts about the Lightning now for every game and see what else I can fix.
Is it safe to say that a 4-0 star sweep is no longer on the table for you?
No, we could have a 4-1 drubbing by the Stars, but a sweep is out of the question now.
I'll tell you my final thought. Now, we love to pick on the traditional media, particularly the sports media on this program, but you gotta love when the media just has an awesome headline. Robert Kraft was caught in a pay for sex sting down in Florida, involved with being caught on security cam footage at a massage parlor. But the Court of Appeals ruled the Court of Appeals ruled that video is not admissible because reasons and money. Ergo, looks like Robert Kraft is going to be out of legal trouble. But the headline read, Robert Kraft likely to get off in Florida massage parlor case. I mean, where's the lie, though?
That's right. It's accurate. That's accurate journalism right there. Not fake news.
Oh, man. With that said, guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Sports Ball, and we will see you next week. Love me.
You have been listening to Sports Ball with Mike Maharrey and Alan Mosley. You can follow us on Facebook and leave comments, suggestions. Just go to @SportsBall Podcast. That's @SportsBall Podcast on Facebook. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.